and I'm wondering how you as an activist have seen those changes and what you think people have said means to you today, because you have continued to be an amazing writer, and I'm curious about what's going to come next.
Well, since I wrote my memoir about my first 30, or actually there's 40 years of life in a simple revolution that was very much centered in lesbian households that acted as the foundation of various enterprises that got masses of women engaged in educating themselves, re-educating, getting into the workforce, bringing up what their issues were, and so on. And that's now 40 years ago, and the changes are really evident in this discussion that we just had, where it's so clear that people have gotten into places of relative comfort compared to what life was like back in the 60s, when young men from the outskirts would just feel free to come to Castro and just bash some faggot on the head and so on. And all of those things that led me and people like me to want to explore what it meant to be gay, what did the word dyke mean, all of those sort of social signatures that can act to make us outsiders who are persecuted. And so much has happened since then, where we have become authoritative about ourselves and also have an impetus to make social change. And I don't think that's accidental. As I said a little earlier, I think that change comes from the fringes, and that because we've experienced the fringiness, if we can call it that, that we have to adapt new ideas, new methods, new ways of having solidarity, and so on. Isn't it true that Rachel Carson was a lesbian? Isn't that right? Isn't that something that's come out about her recently? And I just don't think that's so accidental, that she had such a prophetic voice, and that's an issue that came up again and again today, including in Why I Wore Green, that people are talking about, yes, we need to have some solidarity around being lesbians or being LGBT or being queer, but there are bigger issues that are going on that are pressing for us. And they were pressing for us at the time as well. I mean, there were lots and lots of lesbians who took part in the People's Park protests that laid down the foundation of what we then came to call ecology. That word wasn't even being used at that time, but it was on the street. And for days and days and days, we made parks in Berkeley, and the police chased us up and down the street in order to show that people wanted to take responsibility for the earth and how the earth is green, and how food is raised, and how creatures are treated, and so on. And these are huge issues. They've never been bigger now that the scientists have told us so much about the necessities for climate change. But I think that just as after the Women's March you saw pussy hats show up in lots of other kinds of marches, I think that LGBTQ and these younger folks that are so gender fluid are going to be these new fringe geniuses out at the edges who, just because of defining themselves as different in any way at all from the mainstream, are going to be the activists of what's coming. And we don't know what that is. It will involve the economy. It will involve the ways, our habits of how we are with respect to Amazon and all of the other corporations, of how we think about impacts of our behavior on different communities. I think that we're going to become very sensitive to that people are going to, as a whole come to understand where their clothing comes from, who makes it, what about these creatures, what can we do to get protein in our diet without having the farming, what can we do to keep from poisoning the forests with the illegal marijuana farmers that are in Northern California forests right now, and so on and so on. There's just like infinite number of places to get involved. So that's my thought for the day, of absorbing everything, that yes, we need to stay rooted in who we are and solid with that. But it's not about bingo games, you know, on Friday. It really is about getting involved with the bigger issues, and they're enormous issues, and that's what's so exhilarating about them. And as someone was saying earlier, that Trump is bringing out the best and the worst. You know, he is consolidating, and I've even come to think that there's a mobilization going on that might not have happened with somebody that we could be more complacent about. We're not complacent now. We can't be complacent. We have to be activists. Everybody who has hope for the future needs to be activist in however ways that we can. And the question then is, how do we define what activism is and what it isn't?
And that's a wrap on this month's edition of Outlook Video. You can watch extended versions of our segments and archive past programs on the Outlook Video's YouTube channel at youtube.com/Outlook Video. And be sure to click on the subscribe button.
Also, friend us on Facebook at facebook.com/Outlook Video. Outlook Video is made possible by generous donations from viewers like you and talented volunteers behind the camera whose names you'll see as we close. We close with the Rainbow Women's Chorus singing at the Billy DeFrank Center. From all of us here at Outlook Video, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next month. Bye for now.
Bye.
Be a wonder.
So